I'm ready. Okay. The Finance Committee meeting for the Gary Common Council for Monday, February 24th, 2020 is now called to order. I'm Mary Brown, Chair of the Finance Committee. Present this evening is Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell of the 5th District, Councilman Cozy Weatherspoon of the 2nd District. What? Councilman William Godwin from the 1st District, Councilman Ty Atkins from the 4th District, and Councilman William from the 6th District. And and my councilman.
One and only.
Yeah. Ronald Brewer from the 3rd District. So, and our legal advisor, Attorney Renzo Williams, is present. We have two items on the agenda, CPO 2020-12, which is an ordinance approving the reorganization and renaming of various executive departments of the City of Gary and amending salary and operating budgets in connection therewith. And CPO 2020-14, an ordinance appropriating 2020 budgets for the operating expenses of grants, donations, and special revenue funds for the City of Gary for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020 and ending December 31. So we'll take them in order. We'll start with 2020-12, reorganization and renaming of various executive departments. I don't know who's doing that. Are they? Okay.
Careful, the chair, don't lean back.
Which one is that?
This is for, the first one we're talking about. There's
Don't
some
leave that
handout.
2012?
Yes.
It's
So, Councilwoman, I am amending this budget, that's what you have, so I want you to see it.
You doing what?
Amending it, I left out a sheet. Hold on, my phone.
Don't do that. That's the
Okay, I
dangerous
will.
chair.
Okay, lean forward, right?
You got this forward.
Need a third hand.
So, CPO 2020-12, thank you, Angie. Is an ordinance, covering a reorganization of city departments.
Sorry, we're a little slow here.
So I'll wait till you get it.
Okay.
Councilman Lay asked me to make sure that I gave you a copy of the original ordinance provisions, so that's one thing that you have. The other two documents are an attachment that I got in my ordinances that I attached, my budget. And I apologize for that. You'll have a complete ordinance with all of the documents by council. I also passed out the currently revised organizational structure, and I'll start out with that. I'd like to say first of all that the organizational structure,
Any more?
I don't know.
we're in together.
Everybody got
One
one?
more? No, we're okay. I brought it.
I thought I had.
You need, yeah,
Could please do that away from the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. I'd like to say first of all that I don't know if all the council members are aware or not, but many of the city departments were actually created by budget as opposed to by an actual ordinance that created the actual department. So one of the things that I hope to achieve is to actually create the department if it's not created in the actual ordinance. And there are a couple of departments that exist already that I'm covering in this particular ordinance. So having said that, there are a few departments, with the new reorganization, if you look at that organizational chart, you'll see a darker level of boxes across the top, and those are divisions that we are creating. Where those particular divisions fit, I've added a provision in the actual ordinance itself to try to create that. Most of the divisions, or the actual substance of the divisions, already exist. So what I've just simply done is just created a division structure as opposed to a department structure, and there are departments that fall under each of those divisions that you'll see in the chart itself. I've added created a division of public works. We've amended the ordinance to include a couple of other departments under public works. One already exists, vehicle maintenance. As you well know, we've had a vehicle maintenance department for years and years, but it's never been an ordinance that actually created that department. There's also a new Department of Sustainability and Environmental Services. The Department of Public Works provisions are amended as they need to be in order to cover the particular items that I put in the organizational chart. We've created a division of code enforcement. That's one of the executive departments at the top of the organizational chart, with powers and duties as outlined. We've created amended the finance department ordinance that creates a division of finance and procurement. There are a few changes to what actually falls under that particular category. There's a division law. It's just simply called the Department of Law in the ordinance, and we just called it division. And some of the changes actually are that kind of thing, where it was a department and we just said a division. The public parks is has another provision added. In your organizational chart, you'll see that there's a department of venues, parks, and recreation. The organizational structure of the park department doesn't change, but what has happened is that the park superintendent now has some additional responsibilities, namely venues and recreation, or recreation was really a part of the Parks Department anyway. But what the idea is behind this particular division is that all of the venues in the city, whether it's Marquette Park, Hudson Campbell, the Genesis Center, Railcat Stadium, would all be under the coordination, not management, because they're existing leases and that kind of thing, or catering kind of contracts, that kind of thing. It doesn't nullify any of that. It's just simply an attempt for one person to try to coordinate some of the staffing that are used in those facilities, where there are economies that we can actually realize across venues. That's what that person's responsibility will be. There's an ordinance that looks at a division of innovation and technology. There has been first there was an MIS department, now there's an IT department, and there's never been an ordinance that actually created those departments. And then there's a division of public services. There was an old division of social services that existed in the ordinance, and we've just kind of updated that a little and put all of the public services type organizations that we might have in the city under this umbrella. At this juncture, the executive director of that division would be the health commissioner, but it's the way. But the way the ordinance is actually written, it doesn't have to be the health commissioner. It just has to be anybody who is charged with public services or in that area. And at this juncture, we're looking at the health commissioner. To actually facilitate all of this, there's some accompanying budget sheets that are attached. There have been some changes in positions that are involved in some of these departments. The first one is the mayor's office. There's a change of title for the constituent services director, and that title is now deputy chief of staff. The next budget sheet involves the public works department. There was a building superintendent position that was vacant. That position has been transferred to the commerce department, I'm sorry. The idea is that when we do our 2020 budget, this particular position will be reinstated, but at the moment, since it was already vacant, and we have two assistant building superintendents who cover the work, we decided to transfer the dollars associated with that position to the commerce department. And in that department, when you get over there, you'll see that we've created another position, and I'll get to that in a moment. The public works operating budget has been adjusted to show that change. There's a supportive services change, which is Fund 258. In that department, there was a front desk security person, which has been vacant for maybe almost 2 years. That particular position was changed to a special police position. That will create two special police positions, one being paid at about $36,000. I think that one was the one that was already in the budget. And then there's the new one will pay about $34,000. I passed out a sheet for the fire department. There's a position there for a supportive services manager that was vacant. That position will become part-time as opposed to full-time as it is now. The fire chief needed someone in the emergency management area to work on the emergency management plan for the department, and they would use that particular position to create those plans. We are kind of out of compliance in that area, so with a limited amount of resources, he decided that since that position was already vacant, that we would use that one to actually fund someone to handle those kinds of areas. And in the Commerce Department, there are changes there. First, the title that was in the budget, Chief Policy Administrator, is changed to Executive Director of Community Investment. The Community Investment Division that's in the organizational chart is the entity that is charged with economic development in the city. If you recall, there was maybe about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, maybe a little sooner, not so long ago. We used to have an independent economic development department that got cut out of our budget once the city started facing economic problems. And eventually a lot of the, or I'll say some of the functions that were in that department either fell by the wayside or were picked up by the Gary Economic Development Corporation. This particular division brings those functions back in-house. There's also a change in title for the operations manager. That was a person associated with the code enforcement department, and that's now an executive director for code enforcement. That's a title change. I forgot to mention that the executive director for community investment, the economic development function, the salary is increased from $52,000 to $70,000. And this comes from,
Which one is that?
this is what was the chief policy administrator, but it's now changed to executive director community investment.
I see it.
Right. There's also a change with a code/zoning inspector. That is changed back to inspector 2. There was an inspector 2 position in the building department. That position has been reinstated. And I'll just say this about the code and zoning inspectors themselves. The code enforcement officers will be picking up an additional person in community development, so they won't be losing anyone. And with the ordinance that Mrs. Scott Henry is bringing tonight. She's transferring some of her persons that are in this budget, because if you recall, this budget combined a lot of different departments. And two of these positions, the brownfield specialist and the air quality manager, were originally in another budget. She is transferring those positions back to the budget, the fund that contains the fees that she collects in order to fund those positions, and then those dollars that are left in this department can then become inspector positions again. So there will be another change later that will reinstate an inspector in this particular division. Also, there's a change with regard to the director of planning. That position is not being funded, but rather not being funded as a salary, but rather as a contractual position. And as I mentioned before about the transfer of funding from the Public Works Department, a data analyst person position has been created in this particular department. Moving to the next item. There's also been a change of title in the information technology. Sure.
Going back to the third.
Just for us to come up here so we can all hear.
When you say,
Can you bring your chair up here so everybody can hear?
Do you want to sit here? or not?
No.
Sitting back there.
I can get it. Okay, when you start, who's over the park department? It's a board over there.
Right, and we have not changed anything. There's still a park superintendent.
Okay, who does the budget over there?
The park board,
The board.
yes. We're not changing the park board budget.
No, I understand that, but how is this person coordinating something that's under the park board? How does this person manage to do that?
The person is not changing his or her responsibility. That's what you mean. I mean, in terms of park function.
So,
If I may.
I would have some questions, but I'll hold them.
Facilities and grounds.
But when it comes to the parks, the tax funds, they're non-reverting funds.
I'm not talking about tax fund, I'm talking about a board sitting there. We've running this before, I believe the year was 2008. We had the meeting at Cracker Barrel to try to realign what the city had done. That was
Yeah.
before your time.
Yeah. But
So-
I'm saying, but this
That's
board,
true.
this body
That's
right
right.
here approves the
We did.
board, the park
I know, but
budgets.
you're not helping by someone
No,
interrupting.
I'm following you,
Yeah,
Attorney.
you're not helping at all, you may think you are. So, under facilities and grounds, that's still under the board, right?
Yes, and that's not changing.
So then, what does Mr. LeBroy and Mrs. LeBroy do? If none of this is changing in regards to the parks, what is their role? What is their role?
If you notice the language that's used in the actual ordinance change,
I was trying to follow you.
right now, I'm following. The idea is that the park superintendent, who already has a number of facilities already under their jurisdiction, can coordinate some of the use of some of the other facilities, whether it is through resources that are available across facilities. It doesn't change anything with regard to who the superintendent reports to, or it doesn't change the park budget. It's just an attempt to try to make sure that all of the facilities are operating at maximum capacity. So if there's something that the Genesis Center needs, perhaps they can borrow it from the park department. It's easier to do it if it's the park superintendent's responsibility to make sure that all of the activities across facilities are coordinated. That's all it is. It's not a change in who that person reports to.
Okay, I understand that. Does this person talk to the park board?
You say, have they talked to them?
No, will they talk to the park board?
Yes.
So in other words, you don't just come back to City Hall and do something?
No.
It's not- Okay,
None of that changes.
okay. Where do you get the additional money for your community investment? Where does that money come from? Sounds like 20-some thousand dollars.
First of all, there were changes across all, that's the other thing I did mention, across all departments, in terms of this change, there's no change, or minimal change in terms of the amount of dollars that we're talking about.
Are you saying the bottom line is not changed at all?
If it is, it's $1,000, don't leave that to Andrew.
I gotta look. No, just let me look.
So I think it would have been helpful, if it's okay, Chairwoman, for us to understand, or for that to be a part of
And we
the
can do that.
amendments, so
And
that
we
we
can
can
do that.
see, what funds were
Okay.
extracted to fund the $20,000 jump,
Okay.
right? And then also maybe a summary of all the
Yeah.
additional changes that
Okay.
have been
Right.
stated, eliminated.
Okay, I can certainly do that.
I don't understand how you changed the bottom line.
It did not.
No, young lady,
She's saying it did not change.
oh, the bottom line, where we're talking about $28,000 or something like that?
Between the various departments and the changes we made, I'll just give an example, and I don't wanna say this is it, because I'm not the controller, and I don't know what she moved around. But in the Department of Commerce, for example, the salary for, the planning director was $70,000, the original salary. The actual, and I mentioned that position will be handled contractually. That contract is $60,000. So that's a savings, if you see what I'm saying. There are other instances like that.
Okay, let's someone not
I
understand.
guess.
You said the position now is going to become contractual, is that our professional services?
Yes,
How does the money leave the budget to go to professional services?
that's what is being,
You're asking us to do.
yes,
Take the money
that's why I have the budget sheet.
in the budget and send it over to the.
Yes.
So why are we doing contracts?
Why are we
What?
doing contracts for these positions?
Why is the city doing it? I mean, is that what you mean when you say?
For
we?
both planning and communications director, these have historically been budgeted full-time employee positions. What's the reasoning behind making them
To save
contractual?
money.
How much
And-
is the communications director gonna be paid as a contractor?
60,000.
60,000? That's the same as the planning?
Yes,
Okay.
And it's not really saving though, right? Because we took the variance and that has been somehow moved to support the additional salary of this community investment executive director.
between that and whatever we saved or whatever was reduced out of their professional services. There, in
So-
some cases, the professional services budgets were reduced.
Okay. So it's a cost avoidance in terms of those particular roles, but that excess money that was budgeted from the 2019 budget was then allocated towards
Somewhere else.
other, right.
Right. So it's not a savings to the city.
It's not a
It's just a
savings, it's
movement of
just a-
funds.
Well, if the idea, and I, maybe I was not clear, if the thought, that I had was that the council would be concerned that we were trying to raise the budget above the 2019 level or the 2020 level, and that's not what we're doing. And that was what I was attempting to indicate to the council.
So-
Not that we were saving money altogether, but that we weren't raising any, if you see what I'm saying.
So I go back to my question then. If we're not saving any money, what's the reasoning behind making what have historically been full-time positions contractual positions?
We believe that we can actually have the services that the city administration is looking for in this way, in a more efficient way.
The person who, or the entity who'll be handling communications, do they have a company that's located in the city of Gary, or are they a resident of the city of Gary?
They have a company, I don't believe they're located in the city of Gary.
Is the individual who'll be handling that matter a resident of the city of Gary?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
that was my
But
question.
that person's in the budget.
Well, the goal is to move it. So my thought is that if it remains a full-time position, according to our residency statute ordinance, that person would have to be a resident of the city.
Right.
But by moving it to a contractual position, that person does not have to be a
Does not
resident
have
of the
to
city.
be.
So it seems to me it's not about saving money, it's about allowing the entity who's doing it to not have to be a resident of the
Non-residents.
city,
Well,
because we're just moving money, we're not saving.
Right, exactly.
I got a question. We going on this one, we're going on the salary.
Huh?
We're changing the salary from 52 to 70.
Which
Yeah.
one is
The
that?
executive director of
Yes.
community investment, whose position is that?
Eric Reeves.
So why are we giving him raises this year? already?
The particular position is not one that is normally funded at 52,000. I'm not quite sure what the chief policy administrator position was supposed to be, but generally speaking, an economic development director doesn't make $52,000.
I have a question, somewhat like Councilman Dollars. In supported service manager, do they know who that person is that you sit here right now?
Does who?
The fire chief.
He has been talking to someone.
Yeah, I mean, I've picked it up. I don't know what it's called, whistle or not. But he's calling someone in Hobart to come here to help him run the Gary Fire Department.
He wants someone to help with the emergency management component of plans they
Of
need.
the Gary Fire Department.
Yes.
And this is not going to be done inside of the Gary Fire. No one in the entire department would be able to fulfill this job.
The support services manager?
Yeah, in other words, how much time is part-time?
20 hours a week.
20 hours a week. And this person, like I said, again, I don't know how accurate the information. I didn't think it'd show up this quick. But this person, as I understand, is in Hobart. But is he the Hobart chief, fire chief?
No, not that I know of. I know that he was a retired Hobart fireman.
And no one was
Fireman in the city of Gary. I have a
Which
question.
one is this? This is,
And the fire. I passed out a separate
That was a
sheet.
separate sheet.
okay, okay.
Councilwoman Brown?
Where do you get the money from this position? Where do you get the $36?
You want to give me your phone? Is that what you have? Thank you.
Where do you get the $36,000?
It was in the budget.
What did you eliminate in order to arrive at $36,000?
In the fire department?
Yes.
Nothing. That was,
It was already in the
right.
I think we
There's a
approved that
change.
last year, didn't we?
Right.
It wasn't funded. I mean,
Right.
it was funded, but no one was in the position.
Right. It's vacant.
This position?
Yes.
The change there is from full-time status to part-time status.
Mayor, executive assistant, administrative assistant.
Somewhere there had to be some money, somewhere, to get to $36,000.
There was a there is and was a position in the budget.
There for $36,000
Yes.
already?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This special police two change, what exactly is that person doing?
Both the special police positions, now and in the past, have been drivers for the mayor.
Okay. How many police officers do we have in City Hall during the day? I see a lot more than I used to.
Most of them, and occasionally there's one, I think that's a police officer, but they're really reserve officers.
Okay.
Okay. Question. The special
ahead.
assistant constituent services changed to deputy chief of staff?
Yes,
Who is that?
Shanita Starks.
Because, I keep asking who is that because I don't know
Well,
who's holding the
this is the
positions.
problem. This is the problem. We don't know who any of these people are.
Okay.
That they've moved
You're
around.
absolutely right.
Okay? They've moved them around. We don't know who they are.
So, Madam.
And nobody has bothered to tell us who these people are. So normally, just let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Normally, when we start doing some things that are budget related, we bring some people in who are actually doing those jobs. We have not seen any of these people. I don't know them. I don't know any of these people that have been moved around. I mean, unless you guys know them, I don't know them.
I don't know.
And I just don't, I have an issue with that.
May I have a
Yes,
question?
yes.
What is it that the council needs, since you said?
We
that-
need
what-
to know who these people are that we have moved around. For instance,
So you need something with names or?
absolutely.
Okay.
Names,
Absolutely.
faces, I would love to know who,
Coleman, I think it would help too, especially for maybe our like experienced council members and for us too, who are familiar with the curriculum. We could show what the previous title was, what the new
Yeah,
title
we-
is.
and normally
what the
we
person's
have
name
that.
is, so that we can see the transition. And that's,
Well, the name is not there, but certainly the previous title was there, Councilwoman.
Some of them are.
Not on this one.
Only on the ones that we're changing, we have the previous title and we have the new title.
Okay.
But I can do
It would
it
be
in a way
nice.
that you can see it better. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that would be great.
Is the professionals, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
professional services additions, is that on a budget sheet somewhere? So it looks like we've added roughly $120,000 to professional
What-
services.
What, as I understood, what was requested is you wanted a, overall breakdown in terms of what changed in terms of categories. And that's what I'm gonna provide.
Okay, so that'll be
That's what we
added.
need.
The idea is that you're proposing to add 120.
Yeah, because I don't,
I'm concerned about, I'll publicly say, the communications director role going from a full-time role, given the responsibilities with the media department, that people are here, and it seems odd to me for that to be contractual, and like there's another agenda beyond efficiency, but it's just my opinion.
Chairwoman.
yes.
How long do the how often do the communication director work? Is he at 20 hours, 30 hours, that contractual?
He works as we need him, so he works, is here mostly every day.
Okay, under this contract in place now, their contract,
Yes,
and it's contracted for that,
yes,
I would like to see the contract,
okay.
because that's a certain, time now, so you have a contract to execute without money being over professional service.
That's not true. There's money already, no, I'm sorry. There is money already in professional service, in that budget.
So we don't have to move any money from the current director of communication there. If you already have money over there, you can use it.
I will get you the contract and you can see the terms.
No, I understand that, and mine was in the form of a question. If you already have the money there, the 75,000 that's in, now currently in the, for the communication, you don't have to move anything, is that correct?
Not to cover this contract, but there have always been other expenses in the media fund.
Why would we
Their
move?
staff, others, they've always bought equipment.
So it's, what I'm, certainly, I see you can, I guess not taking my fault. $75,000 you're not spending, so it's sitting there, is that correct?
There's $75,000 now in the salary slot for the
Right, but
community.
that has
Right,
not been spent at all.
right.
Okay, now, are you gonna give us something specifically to show us why we moved 75,000? Other than just asking, why we moved?
I can.
Is that, I have a couple,
Go ahead.
does that person have a city vehicle?
No,
Do they receive any health benefits?
no,
Do they have any staff that report to them who are full-time or part-time employees of the city?
No.
Do they have an office in the city?
no.
So this communications director person just floats? He has no desk, no chair, no,
In the mayor's office, he has
so he has an office,
a desk.
a desk, and does nobody reports to him?
Communication staff, no. So what is it that you want us to provide
Does he
you
have
with
regular-
regard to
Yeah, I'm
this particular position?
I mean, there's a legal distinction between an employee and an independent contractor.
Exactly,
And, if a person has regular hours.
Right.
If they have usually an office on site,
Sure.
if they have people reporting to them, it's effectively really more of an employee role that we're simply making it contractual to avoid other issues. And that's my theory, right?
and I understand that.
But, so I'm just curious about, and when we see the contract, I guess that will be enlightening. But nobody reports to him. He doesn't have any regular hours, I would assume, because usually contractors come and go as they please. He doesn't sign in or do anything
No.
like that.
Madam Chair.
Okay, and we eliminated the position of internal auditor totally. $2,000.
I'm sorry.
From $52,000 to $2,000 for the internal auditor. So
I'm
we
pretty
don't,
sure that's before I say that. let me look.
that's under the mayor's office. The
That's-
internal auditor was at a salary of $52,000. Now they're at $2,000.
That's the bi-weekly pay. The last two columns
Oh,
are
okay.
bi-weekly rates of pay.
And Madam
Right. In 2020 in the budget. That position
It's not
is
eliminated.
within departments.
Now, I thought the reason for the attorney auditor to keep her neutral, why is she in the mayor's office then?
Is that right?
Because really, she's supposed to report to the council, so why is she in the mayor's office?
I thought it was worked out that she was reporting to the mayor. She shouldn't report to me, as the controller. But I thought she was supposed to report to the mayor. I thought that's what the decision was.
I thought it was a joint between the
I don't
president of the
know.
council.
And the
Yeah,
council,
I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't just so.
And she's not directed by the mayor. She's independent. And I was under the impression that it was a joint situation as well.
Right.
That's just what I
From the State Board
understand.
of Accounts recommendation, right?
So she had to be in some budget.
Well, it's not the portion of budget, I'm just saying, when you say she's in the mayor's office, you know,
In that budget.
In that budget.
okay. But she said she's no longer in finance, she's in the
Right.
mayor's office now.
She's in the mayor's budget. She's not in the finance budget.
Okay.
So the State Board of Accounts authorized her to audit the city. And this person audit the city without their permission.
She is an internal.
Internal.
Right.
So, but her audit, if you come into the legislative branch, had to be something.
Which is why, as I understood it, there was a joint responsibility that was set up.
And the State Board of Accounts has no issue with that. I've always
No.
understood you had to get their permission to audit.
In fact, as I understand it, as I said,
We don't have
they
a building
actually
superintendent
were involved
anymore.
in this
We got
process
one
of
and two.
establishing the position.
So
They
The
moved
building
they have
superintendent is
control.
unfunded.
And they have that in.
The
And we've
Director
got
of
a
Planning is-
assistant, 1 and 2.
That would be something that.
Director of
paid
Planning.
Huh?
A director of planning was eliminated.
Contractual,
I-
they're making it contractual.
I've been involved with them over the years. You really have to
Who is
get
that?
their permission.
Greg Jenkins.
Absolutely.
Greg
So
Jenkins.
if they.
I don't know who that is.
Written document saying it's okay for us to hire this person, they conduct
Great,
the
Jenkins.
audit, I'd like to see the document.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
No, absolutely.
The director of planning, we eliminated that? And what are we doing with that?
It's on contract.
Contract. And data analysis,
That's a new position.
who is that?
Hector Alvaro.
Used to be in the council.
Yes, he used to be in that.
And his salary is 52?
Yes.
And what is he doing? I see what the title says. What does that consist of?
One of the things that the economic development area was missing was someone to analyze data with regard to businesses.
Okay.
And he's charged with that. Whenever they have requests for tax abatement or any sort of financial incentives, he's involved in that as well.
What? Say that again. What'd you say, tax abatement?
I didn't say we're getting ready to have one.
Oh,
I'm not getting ready to advocate that.
oh,
I'm just
okay.
saying that's just an economic development tool that some cities use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's all I'm saying.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I had a question. I know we're focused on like the actual budget, reconciliation needs or, but I had questions about the actual verbiage in the ordinance.
Go
I don't know
ahead.
if that was okay. Okay. So in your, section 3, it is speaking to section 2-694. So just wanted to understand, I know, the first part of it just kind of speaks to the change of the title, right? So is there, any major significance related to the change other than, just the supervisor being changed to executive director? And then is there any changes, I think we might have caught it in the budget, but I just want to confirm, related to, benefits or salary within the particular role?
No, there's no change in benefits or salary. And the reference to supervisor is based, I guess, many years ago when they originally established a public works department, there was a supervisor of public works, which is, as I read the ordinance, was the person who was in charge of that department.
Okay.
And so the change was just simply to designate what the new title would be of that same person.
And so supervisor is not foreman, because foreman is.
No.
Okay,
No.
got it. And then also, in the actual, balance of the text, there is, I think, sentence 3, it starts with the word he. So, as a woman, I just thought that we should use, gender neutral pronouns.
I'm sorry, are you in the same section?
I am.
Is that the original one?
Yeah, this is the original.
Original.
So you gave us the original one.
Right.
So if you look under section B,
We'd have to amend that.
and then you start with sentence 3, which is a part of your section 2, change request.
Okay.
And so I would recommend that.
Oh, you
I
want to
agree.
change?
It
Okay.
should all,
Yeah,
it should
okay.
all be gender neutral.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, if it's okay, if we could go to section 8, I think section 8 in the ordinance request speaks to section 2-795, which is the request for the finance department and procurement to be collectively together. So I just wanted to confirm, I am a procurement professional, so I just wanted to understand in terms of controls that are currently in place and systems that are currently in place that the city uses with this particular department reporting up to the arm that is in charge of the checks and balances, procurement being the function that actually is in charge of purchasing.
Right.
And the finance entity needs to work with them, but the controller is in charge of the purse strings as we speak, right?
Right.
So what controls do we have in place to ensure that there, won't be discrepancies between, I guess, the merging of the two within a particular department?
So first of all, right now, under state law, the purchasing agent is in the controller's office.
Okay.
So it's really not a big change in terms of functions. What this ordinance does do, however, is to make it clear that procurement is being handled through finance. So all of the city procurements generally come through if it's contractual, the Board of Works.
Okay.
So the person who's going to be handling the review of the processing of payments and that kind of stuff, that kind of thing, is already in the controller's office. So
Okay.
what we've just done is just clarify that person is that function is
Okay.
in the controller's office, and I don't think that was very clear
Got it.
before.
Okay.
I have a, Madam Chair.
Yes, go
What
ahead.
is the current, maybe the controller might help, the current amount for professional services that's available for 2020?
Like, I could not off the top of my
For the mayors, I'm assuming that, I'm going back to these planning and communication director, that we're saying that we're making those contractual. So out of professional services, is that correct?
Yes.
So how large is the professional services budget? What's the current amount?
You mean across all funds? I mean, across all departments,
Right.
that's what I meant. That's,
Is it $1 million? Is it?
I see the salary ordinance, but I don't see the other one that would,
So for example, we currently pay for
Right.
engineering services, right, out of professional services. I would imagine that's a substantial,
Yes, and that's actually paid out of public, or general services, public works,
okay.
which is not included here.
So in terms of this communications director and planning director, out of what professional services funds are those dollars being paid out of?
the planning director is coming out of the professional services funds in that department, commerce.
Okay.
The communications director is coming out of the media fund.
So the media is professional services fund.
Yes.
And how large is that?
So one of the last pages in your ordinance is
The original was 30,000.
So there is how much money in the professional services for media?
There was originally 30,000.
So there's $30,000 in the fund, and we're saying we're paying both paying the communications director out of that.
That's
Fund.
all.
So are there any other professional services beyond communications director being paid out of the $30,000?
No.
Okay. So effectively, once the current person reaches $30,000, there's no more money to fulfill the remainder of the contract. If we've signed a contract for $60,000,
We've signed a contract for 30,000, but
Okay.
the idea is
is at some point the $30,000 is going to
Right.
run out. And that's why you would need us to move the money, right, as Councilman Lay suggested, from the budgeted to the professional services and the media fund.
yes.
Is that where okay,
So you actually need the money.
You need the money.
You need the $75,000.
I don't think I said we did.
I know,
No, but you
there's so
gotta
many
get
things in here that don't
Oh, I
make
didn't
sense.
mean to leave you that
Okay.
impression.
Specifically was
I didn't mean to
money.
leave you that impression.
Yeah, so you
I'm,
do need
I'm,
money. That's why I
I'm
stopped
curious
asking
that we don't have any
once you
retired firemen in the city of
I
Gary
don't
that can
understand.
do
There's
that?
so many things in here I just don't understand. I mean,
And I'm trying to make a list of everything that you have
Okay,
questions
do we have
about.
building commissioners now?
Yes, we have a building.
But they
You
are
mean that
paid
they're
under where?
Commerce. Now, this
I
is from
see
20
Commerce, but
This is from the 2019 reorganization that
Okay,
the council approved.
Yeah.
The planning department, the building department, I don't know, I think it's three. They took a couple of positions from green urbanism. All of them are all in commerce. So there are a
Okay.
lot of different positions in that budget.
okay.
And that includes the building commissioner, in code, they had some
In
code
code
people.
too,
Right.
okay.
So all of this is all combined in the commerce department, and that's how it was set up.
Okay.
We don't have any retired firemen in the city of Gary. We gotta go to Hobart and get one.
I'm sure there are retired firemen, councilwoman, but I'm not sure if they have the expertise to do the emergency management plan. That's what the fire chief said he needed, Mr. Godwin.
I want to go back to this.
Could you send us a job description of that position?
I can.
I just want to go quickly back to this professional services line under media fund. So if we're only needing 60, so we're saying that in the media fund, the $30,000 is only needed for this particular role. There's no other media fund need that will require professional services.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving $75,000 as opposed to 60,000. So we're saying the contract is 60,000 for a communications director. So why then are we moving 75,000 to the proposed budget, making it a total of 105,000? So it must be that we anticipate another $45,000 of other professional services, right?
The move was made to cover the contract and any other services that we might need. At this time, no other services have been identified that would total $45,000, or any for that matter. But I guess that answers your question.
So it's not in fact that we may, I mean, I guess my concern is that we really aren't looking to pay I don't understand why this gentleman would want to take a $15,000 pay cut. If his predecessor was making $75,000, and we're saying we're only going to pay him $60,000, but then we're actually transferring 75, leaving a balance of another, I mean, basically leaving, if he's only making 60, we got a balance of 45. And we just said earlier that there's no other professional services currently required for the media fund budget. So it just seems to me that when if the current contract is only for $30,000, whenever that, is he paid bi-monthly or bi-weekly or?
Monthly.
Okay, he's paid monthly. At what rate?
I hope we paid $5,000 a month, we're getting $60,000.
Right, so if it's $5,000 a month, and so that means that's gonna be over with the end of June. So my concern is that we get to July 1 and he gets a contract for $45,000 for the remainder of the year. And so it's actually, I just have a hard time believing the person's taking a $15,000 pay cut if in fact we're transferring not $60,000 to this fund, but we're transferring $75,000. Why not just transfer a smaller amount and put the 15 somewhere else?
Well, it's
So is that,
probably two things you may be missing without me speaking. First would be, you know, a deal day. And the second, he probably wouldn't qualify under our ordinance that requires a department head to be a resident.
Right.
City of Gary, right.
So that's two things you're getting around. One would be whether or not, how many hours he works.
if you're a contractor, you can have other clients.
So already
Right,
been
yeah.
an agreement to show us the contract. They indicated his desk is in the mayor's office, that's a funny arrangement.
Right.
The mayor wants someone to talk to, that's fine.
I don't know.
So, what, I would assume that gets around part of our ordinance. Certainly, if they only need 30, one of the reasons we could ensure that they don't sign for 45, we only give them 30 more.
Right.
That would, assuming we
Right.
would do that, we would
Right.
only give them 30 more, meaning they not. And we wouldn't have to do that till later on, that's not something we would have to do right right now.
Right.
As they approach July the 1st, they would come back and ask for $30,000 or whatever, assuming they even wanted to renew the contract.
You tired of
Right.
us?
They may not even
Really, I'm
want
not.
to continue on tax agreement.
I'm just trying to keep track of what you all want to do.
You know,
But another question is come up, when you put them on professional services, there are benefits. You say you don't pay FICA, you don't pay health insurance, things of that nature. So there is a savings there. I've seen that done before.
well, we know that.
Right.
Well, I was just.
Okay. We understand that. What we're trying to find, what I was basically trying to find out, I mean, I understand that there's some changes, you know, gonna be some changes, but, I mean, you know, when somebody comes in and says, well, I'm the new whatever, we don't have a clue as to who these people are, what they're doing, and so that's problematic for me. I don't know about anybody else.
New positions, I think, in this budget, and I'll make
Yeah.
sure that you get the.
Yeah, that would be good.
It's
I would
new
have some
positions,
names.
but it's new faces all over the all over the building that we just don't know these people.
And I'm not sure who you mean.
On this, and I'm gonna drop this after this, but on this communications director, currently, we haven't made the change, but currently, part of the media staff jointly reports to the communications director, right?
Right.
They
So
did.
earlier it was said that the communications director doesn't have anybody reporting to him, but he does under our current framework, because we haven't approved any changes to the media department.
No, but.
So who reports to the communications director now?
So from our end, we have two individuals that Mr. Harvey will be one of them, and Ms. Harper will be the second person that will report under the media budget, because they're inside the media budget.
Right.
And technically, that is their point person. We currently operate where they appoint to the director on our end now. But if you would go according to the way the budget is set up, their point person is whoever the media director is.
And have they met this communications director?
They have.
Okay. So he does have people reporting to him under the current framework. That's what we're saying, right? Okay.
Is that what they're saying?
That's what he's saying. That's what the budget says. I know we met a couple weeks ago to discuss proposed changes to the media department, which have not been approved. So currently, then there's a joint appointment between the council office and the communications director, who sits in the mayor's office. As a contractor.
Okay, under code enforcement, we still have 6 code enforcement persons or not?
We have 5, and they're hiring another one, the 6th one. So
There'll be
there's 5.
6?
Yes.
What is administration? What is that? Administration of the code enforcement.
Oh, I don't have it. These are divisions within the code office itself. And these are just the administrative people who handle the code violations.
I don't want the camera to read my
Yeah.
lips. Okay. Oh.
I was going to say, building over code enforcement, regulated all the
The unsafe building, usually the hearings are held by the building department, the building commissioner.
Unsafe building.
Law.
That's what they mean.
Okay, that's not done by redevelopment anymore, unsafe building hearings? That used to be redevelopment, right?
Even under redevelopment, the unsafe building order still had to be signed by the building commissioner. So
Okay.
that's why it's showing up like that.
Oh,
Why doesn't that go to the court? city court?
At this juncture, I think it does.
Oh, I see, you're changing the city court.
Pardon me?
You're moving it away from the city court.
What's the question again?
The question is unsafe building law, refers to it as law, sitting under code.
Under code enforcement, right.
Under code enforcement, only because you use the word law. And exactly what is that? What is that? Who's over there? Who's in there?
Some of these divisions, first of all, these are all divisions. Some of these divisions are not yet, and that's the other part that I didn't say when I initiated this. Some of these divisions are not yet in place. There are things that are aspirational. So there are some departments that are contemplated but haven't been staffed, or divisions that are contemplated and haven't been staffed. If they are, it might be in the 2021 budget. But this is the way it is proposed that the city executive departments be structured.
So currently, unsafe building law, there's nobody.
As a division with staffing, no.
So that's not where you go for the unsafe building hearing? Is that something separate or is that the
The
same?
unsafe, the process that has been used for unsafe buildings is still the same one that we're using now. Always with the whole process through redevelopment and going, getting the order signed by the building commissioner. But the building commissioner is playing probably a greater role because now the building commissioner actually testifies about the condition of whatever they are bringing before. So the transition is gradual, but that's what we're going to.
Do you have to have?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. So what is that, what do we call it, what we have here? When you come in, is that unsafe?
It's an unsafe building hearing.
So where's that at in this document? Is that in this document?
It's not shown separately.
Okay,
This is a proposed structure.
Okay.
The existing structure is not shown. The existing structure goes through redevelopment, as somebody said, and that's the way it still is. But we're transitioning to a different system. I'll say it that way. But this is proposed.
You just need to know.
well, I'm just saying.
Hey, I'm
I-
not saying
I have
anything.
never been to an unsafe building here, but.
I have, but
It's
they
my
were
first time
redevelopment.
here.
Yes, and they still are.
It was
Yeah.
operating here, it wasn't that redevelopment, it was operating here in the chamber.
They used to have hearings in the chamber, especially when there were a lot of people being taken through the process.
Okay,
Right.
but that's redevelopment,
The redevelopment was in charge of handling the
Okay.
hearings.
okay.
Ooh, I'm gonna get
Madam
this.
Chair, I understand they ran into a problem. They're trying to get an agreement, as I understand. That's probably gonna come up in the next meeting, an extended conversation with Judge Monroe. That they're attempting to get some, what's called an interlocutory agreement with the county, something like that, to sort of send her jurisdiction to a couple of places. One would be over redevelopment, and another would be to the county itself.
The ordinance that's coming up in the public safety
Right.
meeting, I was under the impression it was concurrent jurisdiction, but
Well, they're changing it. It's not concurrent now, but the city court was set up in '75. They only exist in Lake County, and they're 100% under the council. So I don't know if any concurrent jurisdiction we have with redevelopment for the county. I don't think you can bypass the city court. Of course, the judge can direct me. I didn't know you could bypass the city court and go to the county. On anything, I thought you had to go through the city court.
that's not my ordinance attorney, so I can't speak to it. I can't speak to it. I'll leave that to the law department.
Okay.
And the public safety.
Yes,
We did
yes.
that.
So if you all have some more questions, please email.
Wait, no.
I can't keep it straight.
We had wanted some, we did want some names or
Okay,
something,
that's on my
so that we understand who's doing what.
Okay,
Because sometimes you just need to know who's doing what.
okay.
Well, we want job descriptions, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's on my list.
There's nothing wrong with them coming with the job description.
well, that's the way it always has
And
been.
I have that too. I just don't have
So
copies.
we can see who they are.
Yeah, normally that's what the way it's
Planning
done.
director and the communication
Yeah,
director.
just go ahead and send.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And where is his office? I'd like to know that,
This is who,
the communications director. I know
I will
Greg
be,
Jenkins.
I will send that to you, Council.
All right. Not his office here, but as a
No, I understood what you
business
meant.
owner.
I understood what you meant.
All right.
Y'all still my friends.
I know you just the bearer.
Right,
It's not you.
yeah,
You
right.
done with me?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It kept them out to the transfers between the funds, that's why I said it.
I understand.
Or does it automatically go?
Yes, Arlene.
Okay.
We'll see you again.
Thank you.
I'm going to get ready to hit somebody, I'm sorry.
I'm glad I don't need any more home,
Are we finished, Madam Chair?
In the hot seat.
Yeah, we
We have
can move
another one,
on
don't we?
to the next
Is
one.
that both of them?
We got another one.
You intend on moving this,
I'm sorry.
you don't intend on moving this 30
No. Oh, no. Too many questions. Okay.
Okay, I won't.
2020-14. The 2020 budgets for the operating expenses of grants, donations,
A while.
special revenue funds.
Yes. Okay. First of all,
Go ahead.
all right. First of all, I want to say that, but before we prepared our budgets, our department did go through as usual at the end of the year, a strategic planning process where we've identified or looked at the services that we've delivered and then tried to improve those services based upon the issues that we faced during the year. And so my budget will reflect, so in our department, we are responsible for the implementing the Clean Air Act. We issue permits to commercial and industrial businesses in the city. We are responsible for implementing certain aspects of the Clean Water Act as it relates to groundwater, as well as the stormwater MS4 program. And then, of course, you have the land quality pollution issues that we, such as the underground storage tanks, brownfields, solid waste, and hazardous waste. So these are the things that we're responsible for. The city does have some local policies, of course, under the solid waste ordinance, which is really antiquated, and we need to do some, this year we will focus a lot on solid waste. The solid waste ordinance, one, to improve it so that it applies to today's issues. Our solid waste ordinance hasn't been updated since 1972. And then we need to look at
1972.
72. It doesn't even include the RCRA requirements, which is hazardous, dealing with hazardous waste sites. And then there will come a point where we have to address the stormwater ordinance, which is required by EPA and the state. So those things are coming down the pipeline, and we'll have a key role in terms of guiding that process. And then we're working on some issues with septic systems, which we have a serious problem is in certain communities that have septic system are using this type of waste system. So we are trying to focus on how to have citizens improve their septic systems by coordinating, not only is this happening in Lake County, but Porter and LaPorte counties. There is a coordination group that's facilitated by the state. And then there are some other areas. Green infrastructure is definitely important as we move forward in the city. Wetland inventory, time has changed. There are some places where wetlands exist, sometimes they don't. And as you know, that the law just came down with President Trump signing off on issues that will impact wetlands. So there's a coordinated group also that consists of all communities in this region where we are looking at the wetland inventory. And then there's a lot of conservation and preservation work that we have going on. And I'm saying all of this because my budgets will reflect that. But most importantly, we have a new component in our department, which is sustainability. Not new, but the Department of Sustainability, where we are getting ready to launch a climate action plan process. And the budget will reflect that. So that's just a general overview of the department, and I will happily share this.
Tell us
report with
again
you.
what you said about the septic systems.
So septic systems, we've done an inventory, and we have about 1,000 households who are using septic systems.
And I know in the city of Gary.
Yeah, primarily in the Miller area.
Miller and West Side.
And Black Oak.
Right,
And
yeah.
some in the Calumet
Township.
Township area. So, septic systems have a life of about 20 years. And we know that there haven't been a lot of new development in the city of Gary. So we know that those systems may have issues if the homeowner haven't been taking care of them. So there's an effort, the ones that we're really concerned about, although land quality is important, water quality is more so. And those homeowners that are living near water bodies like the Little Calumet River, you have the Marquette Park out here, Marquette Park Lagoon, we've done a study out there. So these are, the Little Calumet River and the Grand Calumet River are headwaters for Lake Michigan. So eventually all water drains to Lake Michigan. So what we can do inland to reduce pollution will help improve water quality once it get to the main body. And then we do not control drinking water, but we do control, the city does have wastewater where we are responsible for. And then we manage stormwater, so what people do on the ground is important.
Those people who are within so many feet or whatever, so many yards or feet of a sewer system, are they not required to tie into the sewer system?
There is law on books that said that they are required to tap in. I know that, Dan Vicari is over the Gary Sanitary District, but one of the challenges that we had with requiring people to connect to the sewers was because of the financial burden that it costs on those homeowners to connect their systems. So most people opt to just continue as they are. But we do know the state has worked with us on several cases where we have people who really needed to be displaced from their homes because of the conditions there, and we're just having a hard time trying to help get people to relocate or stop living in those type of conditions. So the education piece is so critically important, but your environment impacts your health. So what you live in, that's you can.
Attorney Lake?
Sure.
Where do you fall on this organization?
So now I fall under Public Works. Yeah, I used to be on the
Where are you right now? You're under Public Works.
Sustainability and Environmental Services.
Okay, that's you.
What kind of assistance are you all getting from the Lake County Solid Waste District, and are you all getting any financial assistance?
So I think the recycling department received their funding from solid waste funding in order to operate their department.
Right.
So that's
That's about it. What about programming? Are they assisting or covering in
They
programming that
do.
offer?
They do. So we can, we have a household hazardous waste collection day coming up on April 25th, where the Lake County really facilitate that process. We just put everything together for our community. And that happens all over Lake County. From April, we'll kick it off in April and it'll go through October in various communities. But Gary's Household Hazardous Waste Day is April 25th.
You spoke about the wetlands, but President Trump made the changes. I'm not aware of what those changes are. And I know we consist of a lot of wetlands in Gary. And if we leave anything standing, it's probably been turned into a wetland. Can you just share?
The legislations that he passed down will reduced restrictions in terms of developing on wetlands. That is still governed by the Army Corps of Engineers. They still have to go through that process, but it's giving developers a little more leeway in doing development in wetland area.
That'd probably be good for us then, because we have a lot of stumbling blocks.
Well, I'm an
when it comes to
environmentalist,
wetlands.
so
I understand. I'm a builder.
those
Yes.
systems are in place to manage water,
Yes.
and they're there for a reason. And if we didn't have them, right now, our groundwater table is very high. And if we did not have those systems in place, we would be flooded out. You can barely dig so many feet here now before you're absorbing groundwater.
Well, I know, and we talk about it a lot with us tearing down different things in the city, and it doesn't take long before it can become a wetland by itself, you know, if it sits idle long enough.
Right.
Without any development happening on it, yeah.
So,
Some cattails come up very quick.
oh, you know them,
No,
very
I've
well.
been around you a little while now.
But the Army Corps, nor does the state qualify them as wetland, although they absorb that water. I mean, when you say over time, we will be talking about places like the J Pit or the space that's on Klein Avenue, where it was a borrow pit, and they dug these pits to do road construction, and now that, you know, they just left them vacant there. So this was way back many decades ago. So because we put nothing in those spaces, they became places that retain water. I don't think that the Army Corps or the state limits us in terms of filling those spaces, which is what we are doing in order to encourage redevelopment in spaces. But they do give you some really stringent guidelines in terms of what to do with that water that has accumulated over time.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be pumped out. Dewatering is the term that we use.
Did you make a substantial change in the budget figures? Your budget.
Let's get to the budget. Thank you. For the landfill post-closure budget, so for you that are new, the landfill, which is located at 19th and 3rd Street, there was a trust fund established so that we could manage and monitor requirements based on this plan that was established in 1999. We're in year 20. We have 10 more years to go.
Really?
And before we can close out, and if IDEM says that we can. So we've been having some challenges there. But we generate, and I'll get to the second budget next, which is the J-Pit, but the money that we generate from operating the J-Pit, which is a clean field site where we take in construction materials, soil, sand, and fill that pit, we use that money that we generate from tipping fees to help offset costs for the landfill.
Who owns the J-Pit?
Pardon me?
Who owns the J-Pit?
The city does.
You got it back to the waste management.
It never belonged to waste management that I knew of, not in my time.
Well, okay, so we have this much money that comes.
We have monies that come in, and then we also are allowed a reimbursement from the state up to about from $33,000 to $38,000, depending on our expenses. We way exceed $35,000 a year. That's
Really?
just one. That's nothing compared to what the expenses are in the landfill. So, but we do get a reimbursement. In addition, we have to generate revenue in order to operate the landfill.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm still not clear on the money part.
Okay.
Within these budgets, are you transferring money?
Yes, so on
What are you transferring?
in item number 3, of the receipts, there's a reimbursement from the landfill trust fund that we are eligible for up to 3.5% annually. So I estimated that to be about $38,000. But we had cash on hand as of the previous year, $51,000. So we're requesting to transfer $100,000 from the J-Pit into this this fund for this year's operation.
You want $100,000 to go where?
From the J-Pit fund into the landfill fund.
I thought your landfill was a closure.
It is a closure. It
You're
is,
not gonna do anything with the money over in the landfill, are you?
yes, we have to implement the plan. So the plan requires us to do weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual reports. So, and remain compliant in terms of land quality issues. And you want me to give you an example? I can do it.
Now you're transferred, at least I think that's what you're doing. 281,000 to air quality or something. What is that?
So, do you want me to finish one budget, or you want me to just skip
Oh,
over?
I'm asking, no, whatever you're doing.
All right, okay, so, we have some existing contracts, so most of this money is in professional services and contractual maintenance. And I put some money in machinery and equipment because we do need a new vehicle in order to operate out there. So I hope that we can get a vehicle this year. But most of the services that we have out there are from anything from managing and monitoring the pumps, to the flares, to the wells, to fencing, all of those type of activities. This is a partial budget for landfill operation. So the total amount for 2020 is $189,000 for the landfill.
Okay.
For the J-Pit, Fund 271. I'll go to the revenue sheet first. We have cash reserve of $485,000. We're proposing to transfer $281,000 into Fund 845, and this is primarily because this is the first year that we've been able to keep the money that we generate for air quality permits.
Really?
Yes. So now I can take those dollars and put them in our Fund 845 so that we can really operate our department and staff our department. I mean, pay for the payroll in that department, as opposed to using tax-based dollars in order to do that. We are working toward becoming self-sufficient and generating our own revenue through environmental services in order to do that. And as you can see here, we also are transferring out of this J-Pit fund that $100,000 that I mentioned. And so that will leave us with a balance of $220,000 roughly. And here, again, this is usually my backup account for J-Pit, for landfill things that occur. And we do have some really, some things that are coming up in terms of the landfill and meeting air quality issues. So before I talk to you about some land quality stuff, so we're gonna have to move toward, we also have an air permit from IDEM, and then there's some air quality requirements that we have.
I have a question. So these permits, and excuse my ignorance, are they paid by air polluters, or how does that work?
Yes, so industry like Carmeuse or U.S. Steel, and then there are some others, they have this equipment in their facilities to operate, that they operate, that pollutes. So they are regulated by IDEM in terms of getting an air permit, but the city permits the equipment in their inventory that they're using to pollute.
And
So
it's
it
an
has the
annual-
potential to pollute.
It's an annual fee that's assessed,
Yes.
and how much is the fee?
It varies based upon the type of equipment that they have in. When we first started, when I first started in the department, we were maybe bringing in like $100,000. So now we are up to about $300,000 that we're generating, because we took time and went through those permit individually and really did inventory within those facilities. There were things that we were missing, and we were able to add those to the inventory and then increase
Do we make
revenues.
surprise visits, or are they planned?
We make visits based upon, they're annually planned. But when we hear of a citizen report something, usually we've done some training to show City Hall employees how to see something that's going on over here at US Steel. And so when they see those things, we have them report them to us, and then we go and do something.
Just two quick questions. Do we compare our fees to what other cities are charging, and are we pretty commensurate?
Actually, Gary is designated as a, what is the term? And it just escaped me so badly. Like,
We will know. You can
with-
make up something. Just give us the description.
So we have a designation where there's, the air quality is poor.
Okay.
It's gonna come to me when I leave out the door. So because of that, we have Gary, it used to be other communities that did this, but Gary is now the only city that still permit those facilities
In the state.
in the state.
And do we
No about the state, but I just
Okay.
know in this area it is.
do we reconcile the inventory that they present to us with the inventory they present to the township assessor for personal property taxes?
Actually, that's a great idea because that will help us generate more revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of them do try to say, delist some of the inventory, but we don't allow them because they have, as long as that equipment is in their facility, it has the potential to emit. If it's not working, we do not let them take it off their inventory list because they are getting a break for that when they file, they do whatever reporting that they do. No, we don't let them take it off, but we will do that, and that will help.
You would still self-assess, don't you?
We do too.
So
We
you-
go
so
into
you
their,
go in?
we go into their facility and inventory the equipment that they have listed on their inventory.
They still have to outline it with the assessor. They just choose how much tax they want to pay.
Right.
So it might be vice versa, right? So
Yeah.
you guys we might have some information that they don't have too. Yeah. All right, so, any questions on the Day Quit Fund? Okay, so we'll go over to, I have a grant from the Lake Michigan Coastal Program under Fund 325. And this is not a large grant, but it's a grant that we received in 2018. And it's to do a greenway at Buchanan Street. It's an entry point into the city, so we want to do a model here. So this is not enough money to cover that cost. We are getting ready to put this project out, the scope of the project out to bid. But we do have some monies that we will use it as a stormwater project. So there will be some monies that we use from the Stormwater Management District, as well as funds that we have under green urbanism to help offset costs. But this is, the amount of this budget is for $83,000. Most of it is professional services, and then we're gonna buy the plants and materials that we need in order to implement the project. And this is due to happen in 2020.
So the request is just to match the funds, right? So I can understand.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you have to, we have a grant for 40,000, then the matching funds is
Right.
about 40,000,
Okay.
so, yes. And then the last budget we have on here is for, 845. And as you saw, we transferred, on the revenue sheet, we transferred the money out of the JPIC, into 845. Now, I have a minimum of $107,000 as proposed income, but I know the income will be based upon last year's revenue. We are trying to create a reserve because if we are to maintain these salaries over time, I need to make sure I can support these funds over the years and not just the current year. Then we end back up on tax-based dollars. I don't want to do that.
So do you, at all times, are you able to confirm that these amount of funds are actually in a particular account?
So.
any given time, or are they potentially just in the big black hole of the general fund?
Okay, so before it was just in general funds, and there was no way that we could determine
What's your
how
actual-
it's used, not the income, but how it's used. With those funds coming to our department, now we can balance the revenue and then expense out
So
accordingly.
you have a specific bank account that you can reconcile?
Angie, reconciling the air funds,
As far as.
bank account.
They sit in a particular place and it's not touched?
It is sitting, I would have to double check, but I believe it's in our bank 10, actually. So it's in with another 149 funds or so.
Okay, wow.
You said,
Why wouldn't it be isolated? Why wouldn't your account be isolated?
The fund is, the bank accounts are not.
How often do you report, since you want to give us, how often do you report what's in her?
She should have access to look at it anytime she wants to.
and we do request, so when we get ready to do our budgets, we always, actually I track it because I'm not sure. I actually have some sheets in my bag back there. But you can go on to RDS and print out income that came in for the department and expenses that go out.
But there's no grant funds that are intermingled with that, okay.
So actually it was. So what we did was, so I managed some grants, like for instance, the Great Lakes Protection Fund. They wrote us in the grant to manage the Vacant to Vibrant projects. And so as we did that time, they submitted the city of Gary a check. And instead of using that for salaries, I opt to use it for our department to help build revenue so that we could support other programs and services that we deliver. And that's kind of the model I'll use in order to become self-sufficient. Like, I think that with the environmental services that we can offer, we can put price to them and offer those services to businesses or even, I don't know, maybe mostly business and stuff.
From a policy standpoint, I'm certainly no municipal finance expert at all, but from a policy standpoint, especially if there are grants involved, is it prudent to have actual accounts for these funds and not kind of just part of a larger thing and kind of?
Are you talking, there's a difference between a bank account and a fund. So the grants go in their own fund as what you're looking at the budgets.
Right.
But there's no requirement that every fund we have has its own bank account.
Gotcha. Even department, right? So like this department and multiple other departments might exist in the same bank account.
Correct,
Okay.
right.
Which is why it's so important to manage your funds.
And you're able to use the fund management to avoid the commingling of grant dollars and restricted and
Yes.
unrestricted.
Correct.
And it's the coding that goes along with it.
Okay.
So if I'm to expense out something, I have to code it so that it shows in RDS, that's how we spent the dollars. And then when the auditors come in, they see that in and out.
And that's the fund accounting that we're required to do.
Gotcha.
At one point, were you using some of those funds for some training for some young people to learn something about that, or what happened to that program?
It still exists.
Okay.
So we, actually we'll launch our urban conservation. Oh, we got so many exciting things happening. Yeah. We have so many exciting things happening, especially this year with our, we have some great partners. So the Nature Conservancy, U.S. Forest Services, Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and that's a whole host of them. They are we're gonna launch a program this summer where we will train 30 youth how to do tree inventory.
Oh, okay.
So the idea is to create the interest in becoming green economy, or get jobs that are in that area. How many black arborists have you seen?
Yeah, right.
So, so we want to make sure that we're educating our constituents on how, those that are interested, especially the younger you get them, the better it is. But they will do the tree inventory and they will be trained by experts. Like you're going to have actual people from U.S. Forest Services, NIPSCO, Student Conservation Association, Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and then some of our consultants. They're gonna hire an arborist to work hand in hand with these youth over a 6 to 7 week period so that they will know how to do tree inventorying. And in addition to that, and this is gonna be in the parks, but in addition to that, they will do an assessment of the surrounding areas in the neighborhood to determine what assets that we have in that area so that we can then begin to build programs and services around that. So I like applying for grants, of course. So if we find out that we can do more, you start out with trees, but then you end up doing something else, right?
Okay.
What's the age for your training?
We want college students to be the team leaders, but we're looking whoever fits within the summer youth program. So we've asked for 30 youth to be a part of our program.
That's good, yeah.
So, yeah, but then we
I know
also
you
have
were
a.
doing that, I didn't know if you were
Yes,
still
I
doing
still
that.
do that. I enjoy working with young folks. And also, we work with individuals who are hard to employ. Hire them during the, from May through October to maintain all of our green infrastructure sites. So green infrastructure maintenance.
Sounds wonderful.
So,
Okay.
which is a new trend, and people are, green infrastructure is something that will help manage the stormwater and also brings beautification, and it helps us to replenish our environment back to its native state. So a lot of people don't like my little plants and whatnot, but they work.
I don't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, I think it's great. My only issue is where you plant it. As you know, when you planted the trees in Jackson Park, you line them up along the sidewalk going all the way through the park on both sides. And it looks pretty. It does. But 5 years from now, when those roots start to grow, push up those sidewalks.
I think we kept a pretty good distance away from them. You don't think so?
No, they're right on the sidewalk.
Okay.
Roots extend.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any more comments or questions
Yeah.
regarding this ordinance? Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. We're probably good. Yeah, that's fine. Right, we don't want it to get loose.
That's mine,
Yours.
yeah. Okay,
Please don't want them to be
Right.
okay.
right laying around.
Are there any more comments or questions regarding anything, either one of these two
Hey,
ordinances?
this is yours.
You better come on over before I go.
You know what?
You got a question. You got a question.
Well, you say it's a committee, right?
Yes,
What is it?
what am I gonna do? No, that's come back.
Don't say all the way back.
Don't lean back.
Oh, this one, yeah, we can do the last one. Hi, George.
Hey, how you?
Fine, how
Mrs.
you
Meek.
doing?
Take this.
You got to switch seats.
Oh, you got one